everybody, first of all, this video is inspired by 30 Days of Corsets Day 13, where Wasted Lives talked about a corset-gasm. Now, that's not a real word, but basically, way back in 2013, the act of removing your corset very quickly and that feeling of everything in your abdomen kind of decompressing and going whoop was called a corset-gasm at the time. Now, that's a very subjective experience, and some people really enjoy that feeling, other people find it kind of weird, and other people actually find it quite uncomfortable. So if you are one of those types of people that you don't quite like that feeling, this video is for you, because I'm going to teach you how to remove a corset in a way that is more comfortable and has your body acclimate better over time. This video is also inspired by an email that I received from a follower who wanted to know how to prevent this feeling in the future, because she described it as almost experiencing additional G-force, like gravity having a stronger pull on her abdomen, on her musculature and on her organs. And she didn't like the feeling of almost like her stomach dropping. And fair warning, you're gonna see me fight a bit with my growing out bangs, because this guy doesn't really know where he wants to be. So first of all, let's discuss what's going on in your body when you remove a corset very quickly. For instance, unlacing in less than 30 seconds, or just undoing the busk without loosening your laces, or even cutting your laces in extreme situations. Some people feel a slight tingling in their skin with the decompression, and that might be due to some interstitial fluid coming back into the skin of your abdomen that had moved out in the time that you were wearing your corset. So for some people who experience lace lashes, or they see little lines and indents where the boning channels are, for instance, they might find that those are tingly or maybe even a little bit itchy. Now, as a side note, if you take off your corset and those lines don't disappear within a couple of hours, that's a good sign that you're probably really dehydrated. So I suggest drinking more water and rehydrating yourself. That will also help rehydrate your skin and move those interstitial fluids under your skin again, make it more plump. Moving down past the skin, you will also probably feel your back and your core muscles sort of re-engage a bit more. Now, when you are wearing a corset at a very light reduction, say 1 to 2 inch reduction, you might actually find that the corset doesn't take a whole lot of the support from your core, but it rather helps engage your core, especially if you are actively trying to pull your abdominal muscles away from, say, the front wall of the corset. So some people can use a corset laced very loosely to encourage them to have better posture and to strengthen their muscles. However, for those who are tight lacing over time, they may feel that their muscles are depending on the corset while you're wearing it. Of course, when you take off the corset, you no longer have that support and your muscles have to re-engage. So if you are taking off your corset very quickly, then your muscles might not have enough time to fully acclimate, and it might be like, whoa, like a little bit startling. So if you are prone to, say, muscle spasms, if you wear your corset to help prevent or stop muscle spasms, then I really don't recommend you take off your corset super quickly. You might want to take at least a few minutes, or maybe even up to like 20 or 30 minutes to take off your corset, just to make sure that your muscles are relaxed and they're ready to take on the full support of your upper body again. Now, if you're tight lacing with very large reductions, enough to cause some organ displacement, then when you're in a corset, Dr. Hirschhausen had showed using MRIs that the stomach and the liver move upwards a little bit, whereas the intestines tend to move down when the corset is really coming in at the waistline. So what Fran Blanche of Contour Corsets had said in one of her old blogs is once you tight lace to a certain reduction, it's kind of like the organs divide and conquer. And that gradual moving down of intestines is crucial for some people to achieve a certain waist reduction, especially when it comes to very extreme lacers, lifestyle lacers, and for instance, especially people who use pipe stem waist corsets. So we know from body scans that in a tight lacing corset, the stomach moves up as well as the liver, while the intestines move down a little bit. So by conjecture, when you remove a corset, probably the opposite happens. The stomach moves down as well as the liver, and the intestines kind of slide back up to where they were before, because these body scans, both from Dr. Oz and from Dr. Hirschhausen, they had done these scans on people who wore corsets or waist trainers very regularly. And so it showed that the organs move readily and quickly, and they move back into what both doctors would say is a relatively normal position when they are not in a corset. So obviously, when you take off the corset, your organs go back into where they were before. Basically, it's not like your intestines are going to stay flattened or your stomach is going to stay lifted. So not to derail too much here, but those scans are actually evidence and an argument against the visceratosis that one doctor from the 1800s or early 1900s had argued that corsets can cause, because obviously through these scans it showed that when the corset is off, the organs go back into their normal positions. They're not permanently dropped down. But another reason to unlace your corset slowly is if you are the type of person to have naturally low blood pressure, and if you are prone to blood pressure fluctuations or chronically low blood pressure, or feeling lightheaded or even fainting sometimes, you will probably want to unlace your corset very slowly so that your blood pressure also has the opportunity to acclimate. So for instance, almost everybody has experienced if you are lying down or if you have bent over to tie your shoelace and then you come up really quickly and you stand up, you have a few seconds of just a little bit of lightheadedness, a little bit of dizziness. Some people might experience the same thing if they unlace their corset super quickly. So, I mean, it doesn't take 20 minutes necessarily for your body to acclimate if you are in good health. It might just take a couple of minutes, or you might want to, just do a little bit more deep breathing as you are unlacing your corset, and that can sometimes help as well. But like I said, this experience is very subjective. If you're only lacing to a 2-inch reduction, you might not experience very much of a difference at all when you unlace your corset, especially if you are a little bit bigger starting out and the corset is really only reducing your skin and adipose tissue. It's not really affecting the musculature or your organs or anything. You might experience almost no difference at all. Whereas if you're a hardcore tight lacer with a reduction of 8 inches and a stem-waisted corset, then obviously this difference is going to be more pronounced from when you're laced versus unlaced. Of course, if you're already the type of person to be experienced enough to tight lace to dramatic reductions, then most likely I'm not telling you anything new here. You already know this from experience. So, and like I said, some people like the feeling of taking off the corset really quickly, hence the term corsetgasm, which I'm really not comfortable with that term, but some people, they like to come home at the end of the day, they take off their jeans, they take off their tight shoes, they take off their bra, they take off their corset, they love to let it all hang out when they get home, and they just really love that feeling of just decompressing. Other people like to take more time, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, there are many videos online on how to lace yourself into a corset, and some of the most notable tight lacers, like Kathy Young, says that she takes well over an hour to fully tighten her corset. And also Gabriel Mogino of Maison Mogino has a video of himself tightening the corset very gradually with breaks in between. Now, I'm not saying necessarily that you have to take an hour to lace up your corset and another hour to unlace, but even taking 5 to 10 minutes to allow your body to slowly acclimate to the changes can be beneficial. So obviously this video is not intended for those who are already experienced with lacing and unlacing your corset, but for those who really dislike the feeling of the decompression when you're loosening your corset very quickly, I have a few tips and tricks on how to unlace your corset and sort of get unready at the end of the day. So obviously start by undoing the bow, and you don't have to necessarily touch any of the X's or the crisscrosses in the back of your corset yet. You might find that with certain corsets and quite slippery laces, the corset will naturally loosen a bit on its own, and you can sort of slowly twist and wiggle your torso to try and activate your core muscles and to get the corset to slowly loosen a bit on its own as well. And don't put a huge amount of thought into this. You can sit and scroll social media for a minute. You can start taking down your hairdo or remove your makeup, or you can let your cat out. Everyone has their own steps for getting unready for their day, so just do what you gotta do. And after a couple of minutes, you can loosen the corset by another 1 or 2 inches or so. Have a bit more of a wiggle, go from side to side and front to back. Go pour yourself some tea and let your cat back in or whatever. And after another couple of minutes, you can loosen your corset another inch or 2, have a bit of a stretch and a wiggle, let your cat out again. And by this point, many people will have their corset loose enough that they can undo the busk. But of course, if you are lacing 6 to 8 inches, you might need another one of these like cycles to get the corset loose enough that you're comfortably able to undo the busk without putting any tension on it. Just remember to let your cat back in at the end. And I've mentioned this in other videos, but remove your corset liner if you're wearing one. Hopefully you're wearing one. Do whatever you want at this point. Some of my friends have said that they like to have a little gentle scratch with their fingernails, or they like to dry brush. They might have a cool or a lukewarm or a warm shower, but not hot water, because that can irritate the skin. Some of them like to massage in some lotion or oil, whatever you like. I especially like to stretch during this time period because the corset already stretches the oblique muscles. So I find that I'm a little bit more limber around this time of day. And also remember to let your corset air out, lining side up. If you really want to, you can spritz it with a fast drying alcohol cleanser if you wish. Just remember that distilled ethanol spirits actually have less residue and less impurities in it compared to, for instance, some isopropanol or rubbing alcohol, because many people use rubbing alcohol on their skin. Some types of rubbing alcohol do have sort of like conditioners and residues in it. So you don't want to be putting that on fabric, because that can actually end up staining the fabric. So I prefer using distilled ethanol for clothing. And just make sure that your corset is completely dry before you wear it again. And that's about all I can think of in this moment. This is an entirely too long video on how to get unready for the day and unlace your corset, but I've gone into all the details of the hows and whys. So if you have a particular ritual that you like to do at the end of the day when you're unlacing your corset or getting ready for bed, then let me know what you do in a comment down below. Obviously, some people like to go without their corset all day and then sleep in their corset at night. So, it's your prerogative, whatever works best for you. But if you want to talk about your unlacing rituals, then feel free to leave your comment below or make your own video if you like. And so, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.